Hi everybody, here Charles Lapp here again. Over the next couple of weeks, we are going to answer some questions that people have been asking us about land and land use and what property consists of and regulations, things like that. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about and maybe try to explain just a little bit is zoning. So zoning, we hear that word all the time in land use, and there's different things that people call it, but it's zoning. So zoning came about in the early 1900s when governmental entities and land use people decided that it was important to have different districts for different uses. And the one that we hear about a lot is having a church and a bar right next door to it. And so that's one of the things that we hear about a lot, is that we want to keep them a safe distance apart. How far should a church and a bar be from each other? And so that's one of the things where zoning came from. In this first map right here, you can see in Flathead County, this is all Flathead County, all of the white areas are unzoned in Flathead County. The colored areas are the areas of Flathead County that are zoned. And so you can see that a vast majority of Flathead County is not zoned. And so there are no government zoning regulations that control that property. Now this second map shows the areas around Kalispell and the areas around Big Fork. And you can see that it's very symmetrical. And that's typically what it is that there's these areas where within these boundaries, the governmental entity, whether it be the city of Kalispell or Flathead County, has decided that we need some regulations here, some government control over these areas. And then you can also see in these maps, these little shaded areas. So these are neighborhood planned areas. And then everything around the main roads, the main highways in Flathead County have what we call scenic corridor zoning. And that has to do with billboards and cell towers. So otherwise, all the white areas are unzoned. And now in this third map right here, you can see this is a snapshot of Evergreen. And you can see how there's all these different numbers, and all of these numbers correlate with what activities can actually happen on these properties and how the property can be used, whether it's residential or business. If it is residential, then how many houses can be on the property, how big do the lots have to be, and that type of thing. And you can see that there's just a vast array. Every color is a little bit different. Some of them are shaded a little bit different. And then of course there's all the numbers that correlate with that. And so now on this slide, this one shows what is RA1 zoning. And then it shows that there's some permitted uses that you can just automatically do. If your property is zoned RA1 in this instance, or whatever else it is, there are some things that you can do that are permitted uses. And then there are also called conditional uses. And they consist of things that you can do with the property, but it takes a little bit extra government oversight in order for you to do those things on the property. So there's permitted uses and conditional uses on all of the properties that are zoned in Flathead, well, in anywhere, not just Flathead County, but everywhere around the state of Montana and around the country. And so the whole thing about zoning, some people like it, some people don't like it. It's one of those things where it does give you some continuity, I guess you would say, in your neighborhoods. Typically along highways and roads is where the commercial and business would go. Maybe back a little ways, that's where the residential will go. And some of that is pretty consistent across the board. But otherwise, it's just up to a community to decide, you know, how things were zoned. When Flathead County was zoned, it was just kind of an overlay, and there was meetings that were involved, and they just laid out the zoning. This area looks residential, this area looks business, you know, and some of that kind of stuff. So over the years, some of this stuff has changed, and that's why you see the different zoned areas, the different colored areas in different places like that. So that kind of gives you just a little bit of an idea about zoning. It was just pretty much a snapshot of zoning. Maybe in a future video, we will touch on more specifics about some of the regulations that go into zoning, but that's kind of a snapshot of zoning. And if you have any questions, again, we really appreciate the questions that people ask us. just go ahead and ask us a question, and we will get to it in a future video. Thank you very much for listening today.